Aquaman. This would be my spoiler review. The non-spoiler review is up on soundofbetterimyhead.com. On that, spoilers, which there's not a ton of spoilers to really talk about. Overall, it was a pretty fun film. It wasn't great. It did have some, I'd say, some great moments. But overall, it was just a fun ride. It had a lot of flaws. I think the humor failed a lot. Tried to be a little too cute. You get some hints of that in the trailers, like the jumping on the airplane scene with their redheads, gotta love them, and the little lamb or whatever it was reacts. Just little silly stuff, but it wasn't bad. It wouldn't hurt the movie. I just think the humor fell fairly flat overall. Some of the jokes are just kind of random. But the movie starts off a little choppy. The origin sequence of Arthur's parents, I don't know. There wasn't much to it. It wasn't much more than you see in the trailer. I heard people complaining about the de-aging technology looking bad, but I didn't realize initially that they were using it. I didn't really think about it until later on when the characters show up, 20 years later, that they were de-aging them in the past. So I thought it was fine because it didn't stand out, didn't catch my attention. I don't know if it was any better or worse than what Marvel did for their de-aging in their films, but it served its purpose. You felt like these characters aged 20 years. The pacing was a little weird, especially with the flashbacks. Like I said, they did the origin of the parents. You got one random flashback as Arthur's a kid. It's the scene from the trailers where he's at the aquarium, and then it jumps to modern time. It was just kind of a weird cut, especially when later on they kind of semi-randomly go back to Arthur's training with Volko, and that just jumps in because he's on that cliff. He's like, oh, this is where Volko gave me my first swimming lesson, and it cuts to that, and then back to the present day, and then back to that again. And it's kind of a weird way to do it. I don't know if it would have been better just straight through, or doing the flashback the way they did. I don't know. That was one of my complaints with Man of Steel, actually, was that the way they did the flashbacks was just kind of oddly placed. But either way, it's useful information. It's cool seeing it. The film looks just beautiful overall. Everything undersea is so vibrant. I know it's supposed to be presumably exaggerated because the Atlanteans can see in the dark, and they're seeing like colors that you normally wouldn't see if you were human. But there was a lot of design work put into everything, just the ships and the creatures with lasers on them, and the weapons and the armor. I mean, there was a lot of thought put into Atlantis. It's almost just too much. I mean, it's like a super sci-fi future stuff, like the way that they're underwater ships, but they are practically spaceships. They're glowing, and they're big gleaming white halls, and I couldn't even think what sci-fi movie to compare it to, the way they do it. Especially, and then they got the scene where they do the flashback of Atlantis when it was on land, and the technology didn't seem anywhere near that, and they just gloss over how this technology they were working on enabled them all to suddenly breathe underwater, because it looked like the thing sank and you were screwed. It didn't look like there was time to modify this tech to make you water breathers. And it's not even like you were wearing, maybe in the beginning they wore masks and then mutated. I don't know. It's so vague. There's no idea what kind of timeline you're looking at for these people that evolved the way they did. I mean, we know from Justice League that the Atlanteans fought side by side with the rest of the Amazons and everybody else who stopped Steppenwolf. I guess you can assume at the time they were still land dwellers. And this is another small complaint. They mentioned that highborns can breathe underwater and oxygen. I don't know why. What is about royal blood that gives you these special ability? It's just kind of thrown in there because they need the main characters to be able to go on land too. I don't know. But the action scenes were all good. I like the first scene with Aquaman's mom. I can't think of her name at the moment. Nicole Kidman's character. Her throwing down and beating up the soldiers. It was pretty solid. Just like I said, just in general, the Aquaman beating up the guys in the boat was good. It's just just kind of a grittier fighting style. Like, it's kind of nice seeing his mom's just real fluid and just flipping around and using her trident. And Arthur is just a brawler. He's throwing you against stuff and grabbing pieces of the sub and smashing you with them. Those other action scenes, the chase fight, whatever you want to call it, in Sicily was decent. That one actually could have been a little bit better because it wraps up the Black Manta arc pretty quickly. I'll kind of get back to the Black Manta in a minute, but his arc gets wrapped up a little too quickly. I'll get into that more later. But the big giant action scene at the end is pretty cool. The stakes seem actually lower at this point. You think this is the invasion. From the trailers, I'm thinking this is the invasion that's going to take over the surface land, and Aquaman shows up to stop it. But it's more like this is the battle to make the other final kingdom join the battle to go battle the surface world. And it's just kind of odd. I mean, it's not. He said the stakes are low. And then the final fight with him and Ocean Masters, it was okay. Just fairly quick. Nothing too crazy happened. Just he used this little special twirly trident, trick for the first time, and got him to surrender basically. So okay, I'll go on the other villain then. The Ocean Master in general was okay. There were hints at humanizing him a little bit, like give him something to really feel some sympathy for. They never really go too hard into it until he gets his reaction to seeing his mother is alive. But other than that, he's just kind of the surface world must pay kind of a villain. He has no real motivation except he's just mad at them. There wasn't like a turning point that really made him say, this is it. And the only one that's in the film is one he fabricated with the submarine, which was obvious. You can see it coming a mile away. But the Black Manta is weird because he has this whole arc, and you understand why he hates Arthur and what's in it that makes it so personal. But it just feels rushed. Feels like this is something that should have happened in like the sequel. Like maybe he gets dicked over by Aquaman, and I think almost the post-credit scene should have been him getting his Atlantean armor. And then the next movie he could have been Black Manta. Instead he shows up, he's got the cool suit, and Aquaman beats him. So I don't know what the next step is for him. Maybe he's already been defeated with like this super awesome armor and weapons. And then he gets this weird scene where like out of the blue, it's him upgrading the armor and making it, taking apart the landing and stuff and making it his armor and spray painting it black. And this gets this weird, most of the movie has like a nice orchestral score. And then it gets this weird song thrown in there, and it's a comical scene of the villain putting his stuff together. And it just looks like something like, I don't know, kind of like an Iron Man scene. It's like silly. It's like the villain's not like a threatening scene. He's just some guy trying to make a cool weapon. It was an odd scene. This is really odd. Overall, the same thing. There's a nice orchestral score to the whole movie, and there's a couple parts where they pop in like random like modern songs, and it's a little jarring, especially when they show up in the desert and you got the Pitbull Reigns of Africa remake. That kind of gets into pacing too. Like there's just so much in this movie. I mean, the plot is actually pretty simple. You need to get this trident and fight Ocean Master, and that's really kind of it. And then the hero's journey is thrown in there. But you got to go here and do this, and then you have Atlantis too early, and he loses the fight, and then he has to go to the desert and get this thing, and then they have to go over here and get this, and then they could finally go and have a big battle. And it's just kind of too much. You could, they were enjoyable scenes, but you could have cut so much out. It's a 2-hour plus movie, and you could have trimmed it down a lot shorter. I would have loved to see extended DVD too with like all the stuff on there. I think that would have been pretty fun. Big thing that's really working with this movie is the emotional stuff. That they did a great job. And these scenes, you get this big buff badass Jason Momoa, but when he gets to have his emotional scenes, he shows his vulnerability, and that vulnerability really helps build up his character. But the stuff with him and his dad is good. The way they set it up about the dad having to go to the pier every morning, it blatantly sets up that there's no way that his mom's gonna not be dead. She's gonna survive to the end of the movie to show up on the thing. You see that telegraphed from the get-go, but still well done. Just seeing his dad go down the pier every day, and then when Aquaman sees his mom, and that's a nice emotional moment. And I said that boiled back over when she sees Ocean Master for the first time, and then of course her going back to see Thomas Curry again at the end. But just all that stuff it was pretty strongly done. Mira doesn't get any major acting moments. She just kind of does her thing, and not like it's bad acting. Just she doesn't have anything special to do except for try to get Aquaman to be the hero. And I thought it was weird that he didn't even know her name, but he knew her well enough in Justice League to kind of show up and ask her her fate. It was seemed like there was a little discontinuity there. It wasn't anything major. There is a mid-credit scene, and it ties more on the Black Manta, which is just kind of goofy. Him teaming up with this scientist that reminds me of the Ancient Alien guy, except he's right that they're Atlanteans and they got all this technology. And just him possibly teaming up with Black Manta. I don't know what the plan is. And well, cool scene I did want to talk about, and I don't even mention in all my other review. I really liked the sequence where they battle the trench. Just the initial part, not so much. It seemed a little silly. They're just kind of jump onto the boat and they're fighting them off. But the scene where they jump into the ocean with the flares and them swimming past this massive, massive horde of like these ravenous, sea creatures. It just looked visually fucking awesome. They're just kind of twirling. They're doing this kind of like helixy kind of spinning thing towards them, and then the light from the flares hitting them, and this everything just looks so cool. And then you get this weird mystical thing where they go into this magic tornado and end up in this magic underground ocean with dinosaurs and diamonds in the walls and the waterfall. That just was kind of trippy. But the part when Arthur does finally come out, and you know what's coming, another one you see a mile away, when he finally comes out with the Aquaman costume, which apparently he just took off a corpse like 5 minutes ago, but comes out and he looks just absolutely badass. Like, this is Aquaman. He's got the trident. And the scene at the end when he jumps out of the water and it freeze frames, he's got the thing. It looks super silly, but I did kind of like the nice tie-in of that scene of him jumping out, and how that kind of goes back to the end of Wonder Woman where she jumps off the building and she takes like a cool classic Wonder Woman pose. And I think that's kind of a nice signature thing for the DC movies to end with. These big hero moments, like they become the hero and boom, there they are. But I really don't got a lot of this stuff to talk about the movie. Just wanted to get some things off out of my head here that I didn't get into in the review, the non-spoiler review. Other than that, thanks for watching this. If you watched it, apparently you did because you've seen this. If not, I'm just talking to the wall again. And thanks.